Hi there, welcome back to another Drive and Talk video with Ren, that's me. And today I want to talk about Pokemon cards. Are they a fad? Yes or no? Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you know about Pokemon cards, right? First of all, let's talk about Pokemon. What is Pokemon? Pokemon is a cartoon series that is, of course, of Japanese origin and started in the early 90s and basically swept the world off its feet. And especially people like me, Gen X, we grew up during that era. So, you know, I watched the first original series in English, of course, when it came out. So I'm old school, you know, old school Pokemon fan. Now, of course, now I'm old. Yes, I am old. But, you know, my love and fascination for Pokemon still remains the same. Now, when I talk about Pokemon cards, I talk about the Pokemon cards as an investment, right? And whether it's short-term investment, whether it's long-term investment, whether it's flipping, you know, it is beyond a doubt, it is a fact that the Pokemon card market is a very active and thriving market. What I mean by that basically is that there's a lot of action when it comes to Pokemon cards, buying, selling today, right? Now, the question we're going to talk about today, which came up recently because in the office where I work, you know, there was some talk about trading cards and collectibles and basically alternative ways to invest your money. Other than the usual things like, you know, buying stocks, like buying S&P 500 stock, you know, all of that regular investment, right? Regular investing into like commodities, for example, gold, all of that, you know, all about that, right? If you don't, right, here's a very short answer to that. Let's say you have disposable income or money that you want to save, right? So, of course, none of this is financial advice. I'm just, you know, telling you what it means, what investing and investments mean before we can talk about Pokemon cards as an investment, right? So basically, you can just put money on a bank account and leave it there for a rainy day, for maybe when your car breaks down, like your dishwasher breaks down and you need cash to buy new stuff, right? So that's not what I call investment or saving. That for me, that's like an emergency fund. I think personally, every person, every family should have some money in some kind of bank account for emergencies, right? Like the things that I told you. How much, that's up to you. I'm not going to go into that right now. So next to that, you can save money for later. And now we're getting into more like the investment space. So let's say you have a savings account and you save money and you're getting 0.1% of interest, right, on that money. You know, I'm just throwing around some numbers, right? These are not actual numbers or whatever. So you put money in there, let's say $1,000, and basically you get some interest on those $1,000. Now, before you think, hey, that's a good idea, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but all I'm saying is that the amount of money you will receive on top of your savings on that savings account is minimal, unless you're putting down millions, right? If you're just a normal working person, if you have a family and stuff, you put $100 in there every month. You know, it's nice, it's better than nothing, but it's not going to bring you like wealth, you know, which is okay, right? Because there's a lot of talk on the internet about investment and wealth and, you know, building wealth and compounding, you know, and of course all of that is true, but for normal working people, right, if you put away 100, 200, 300 bucks a month just for savings for later, right, next to emergency fund money, food, mortgage, rent, driving a car, all of that, I think if you can put away a couple of hundred a month, then you're doing pretty well. Okay, so that's one. Okay, the other one is you invested in what I would call regular investments, right? There are a lot of ways you can do that. There are special savings accounts where the people from your bank basically invest your money for you. You can buy stocks, like for example Tesla stock or Apple stock. You can buy ETFs, which is basically a lot of stocks in one basket, and they follow that, when it rises and drops, and it's safer because you put a lot of stocks into one basket. Or you can buy gold. It doesn't mean like that you're buying gold bars, which is a possibility. I physically know, like really know people who buy gold. Like they don't buy like gold bars like you see in a Bugs Bunny cartoon, but you have small pieces of gold and they're completely certified, they're weighted, and you can buy that and you can stack them, right? And if you want to cash in on your investment, you can just go to any gold buyer and sell them, right? So those are all kinds of different kinds of different ways of investing, different kinds of investments that are very well known. These are traditional investment methods, right? Maybe you're thinking like, hey, I've never heard about this, and maybe you think like, yeah, that's pretty obvious. I can tell you right now, a lot of people have never heard about this and don't even know that this is an option for like regular people. It is, right? There are so many apps that you can just put on your phone and you can start investing right now. And you can just Google that. I'm not going to have to tell you about these apps, right? You can also work with your bank. You can go to your bank or basically go online and go to the website of your bank and talk about investment, right? And they will advise you, and they're like, again, it's not hard. It's not rocket science. And I'm not going to tell you about this in this video, but I just want to give you an example or a better idea of what investing is, what investments are. Now, you can also buy Pokémon cards, right? There are a couple of ways to do this. Again, why am I making this video? Because one of my colleagues at work literally yesterday, came up to me and he was talking about this soccer trading card of Lionel Messi. Now, I think you know who Lionel Messi is. He's a soccer player, played at Barcelona, now he's at Inter Miami, and he bought a signed, graded trading card of Lionel Messi, and it was like $1,000. And he told me, he said, I bought this card, and one of my other colleagues, co-workers, just was sitting there and overheard this conversation and nearly fell out of her chair. She was like, $1,000 for a trading card? And we were like, yeah, but it was graded and it was signed, And she was like, I never even thought that this existed, right? She heard a little bit about Pokemon cards and kids collect them and stuff. And I told them, well, it's not just kids, it's like a complete market. There are cards that are worth 10, 20, 30 bucks, 40 bucks, 100 bucks, 400, 500,000. There are cards out there that are worth tens of thousands of euros, right? And of course you've got like the big Charizards and stuff like that. They're worth like $500,000, but I'm not even talking about those cards. But there are like literally a lot of cards that are worth 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 bucks. And they move around a lot, right? So it's not like only millionaires buy them, Like again, my friend bought a soccer card that's worth $1,000 bucks, but I know that this guy has like a glass cabinet in his house, and he's got like Pokemon cards that are worth 500 to 1,000, 2,000 bucks in there, like many of them, right? So, and that's his way of investing, right? And he's like, yeah, I can buy S&P stocks, I can buy an Apple stock, right? I can buy Tesla stock. I don't know what they're worth today, so I'm just doing, like, I think that like a Tesla stock is like, I don't know, like, let's just call a number 1,000 bucks. But instead of buying the Tesla stock, that might go up in the future, he bought a Lionel Messi signed, autographed, graded card, which is 1,000 bucks, and it will go up too, right? I mean, cars go up, and sometimes they don't, but especially you have like the most famous player on earth, right, is graded. I'm gonna explain what graded is, because maybe you think like I have no idea what this person is talking about. And it's signed. It's actually signed by Lionel Messi, so it's pretty unique, right? So the same goes. So that's why I'm making this video, because I was like, hey, if my coworker, who's a pretty intelligent person, doesn't know about this, maybe you don't know about this, so I might talk about this, talk about it in this video. So you can buy Pokemon cards, and they will go up in value. Now, it's been researched and archived, and it is a factual thing that Pokemon cards rise in value. Do all Pokemon cards rise in value? No, not all of them. But in general, if you're talking about, not uncommon, but more rarer cards, they go up in value. And they continue to go up in value. I just read, like a couple of weeks ago, that Pokemon cards outclass the S&P 500. So the S&P 500 is like the gold standard for investment, right? If you're investing in stocks and bonds and whatever, the S&P 500 is the gold standard. So that basically means if you buy S&P 500 stock, you're always going to go up in value. You're safe. It's a very safe investment, and it goes up, I don't know, I think it's 5%, 5-6% a year in general. So if you think about it, that's a pretty good investment. Like it's way more profitable than any savings account at any bank ever, right? But if you look at Pokemon, it outperforms the S&P 500. So what does that actually mean? It basically means that if you buy a card that you can see, and you can just research that, it's not super hard, you can just Google that. If you look at a card that continues to go up in value, and that could be any good Pikachu card, right? That continues to go up in value, and whether you buy it at 100 euros and it goes up to 120 euros in a year's time, right? You don't have to be a mathematician to understand that that's more than 5%, right? Or not 5%, but more than the percentage that you get on any savings account, right? Because I think like a really good savings account will get you like 1%. I've never heard of a savings account like that, but let's say a savings account gives you 1%, at a bank, that Pokemon card goes up more than 1%, right? Because if it goes from 100 euros to 120, that's good in a year, right? But there are also Pokemon cards that you buy at 100 bucks and they go up to 1,400 euros in a year. That's not really something very spectacular, right? Because there are other ways to do this. But in short, in a nutshell, that's collecting Pokemon cards, right? Now, if you want to dive into this, there are different sets, there are different promo cards, there are 1,000 variables like in any other investment asset, right? So those are things you have to research for yourself. But to complete this whole story about Pokemon cards, is it a fad? A lot of people are saying it's a fad, but it's been pretty consistent for the last 10 years. They've been around since the 1990s, so they've been around for a while, but like the way that it's been right now as an actual investment asset in this capacity, I think we can go back 10 years. So yeah, it's a solid investment. So the question whether it's a fad and whether it will go away, in my opinion, no. But there are still a lot of people, you can find them on the internet, that are saying that it's a bubble and that it will explode and all the value will drop. I don't think that's possible. I think it's just going to go up. But we'll see. We'll see. There's also another way to invest in Pokemon cards, and that's buying cards, any trading card, right? So it could be Yu-Gi-Oh, could be sports card, could be soccer cards, could be tennis cards. So basically you buy the cards raw, which is basically just the card, and then you can have them graded by a grading company like PSA. And basically what they do is they look at the condition of the card and then they slab it, they put it in a piece of plastic so it stays that way, it stays in that condition forever, and they give it a 9 or a 10, which is the highest, right? Or a 7.5. And of course a graded card, the same card, which is a 7.5, PSA 7.5, is worth more than a PSA graded card at a 7.1, right? So you can also buy a card raw for $100, have it graded for, let's say, $50, and then it's worth $500. And so that way you really boost your investment of that €100. So if you think about that, right, then you're talking about an investment of €100, and you grade it, so a total investment of €150, and then it turns out to become an investment of €500. So that, of course, is a completely different type of investment, but that is something that is very real, right? And of course that's nothing new, right? You can buy an old timer car and then put a lot of working hours in it and really pimp it up and revive it into a really nice car, and then you bought the car for $1,000, and then at the end when you put €5,000 of work in it and sell it for 10,000, then the total cost is 6,000, then you make €4,000, in a nutshell, right? So it's not new. But for Pokemon cards, for the last couple of years, it really skyrocketed. So is it a fad? I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because the young people and the old people like me who are really into Pokemon investment right now will continue to drive the value up, right? Because if there are more collectors, there are less cards to be divided among those collectors. Plus, a lot of young kids that are growing up now, when they get my age, they still want to get those Pokemon cards, right? So it's a cycle that will continue, in my opinion, for a very, very long time. So in my opinion, Pokemon cards are a really good investment, but you have to dive deep into that investment asset, just like with any other investment asset. To me, it's completely different because they also have like a nostalgic value, because I grew up in the Pokemon era when it first came out when I was a young kid. So for me, that's an extra value. And just my colleague who talked about this at work, for him, it's the same thing. He's a little bit younger than me, but he remembers this from the old days. So there's also a nostalgic value, but that nostalgic value will continue because the children that are being born right now will still feel that nostalgic feeling with Pokemon cards, only in a different era, and that will continue to grow. And therefore, I don't think it's a fad. So what do you think about Pokemon cards as an investment, or Pokemon cards in general? Let me know in the comments below. And maybe you completely disagree and think I'm an idiot. That's cool too. Let me know in the comments. Have a nice day.